This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. Well, hello. Today we are back with the Women at Halftime podcast, and Greg is with me today.
Hi, everybody.
Once a month he's with me. If you're watching video, you'll get to see his handsome face, and he always puts on a nice shirt. So for our video. So to remind you, now as this is airing, the summit is out. You can get your copy on Amazon. It's available in all versions. I'm so excited about it. So some good reviews are coming in. So just make sure you at least check it out. It's a great gift book, by the way, as you look ahead to the holidays. Today's subject is a very, very good one. Ways to give emotional support in relationships. And it's not just marriage relationships or special relationships like that, but it's also colleagues, it's people you work with, it's even people that work under you. And I feel some of these principles that we're going to cover today are extremely valuable. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to define emotion first. So what's that mean to you, Greg? Emotion or emotional?
I think, our emotions flex all the time. So emotional support would kind of smooth that out a little bit to allow, or to help the other person, smooth out the emotions that normally come with life.
Right. And I think when I think of emotion, I think of like that inner hole, like that something that needs to kind of be filled, the support that needs to be filled. There's that.
But there's sometimes you might feel hopeless.
Yes.
Where, I can give you reasons to feel hope. Or there might be times where I feel agitated at work. Right. Where you can kind of help me gain perspective and smooth that out a little bit.
And again, that doesn't just apply to marriage relationships. It applies to almost any friendship that can happen if you develop your relationship to that point. Depends how close those friendships and relationships are.
And it's interesting now that we're thinking about it, that emotional support is different than fixing somebody.
Yes.
So I could provide emotional support to an older teen without affirming that whatever they're doing was right, nor trying to fix them.
Yes.
But take off the mood swings and kind of make life manageable.
That's been very important for us in a relationship. Because we are different personalities, and it's not like I'm going to fix you to become a type A personality, or you're going to fix me to become more relaxed or more easygoing as the type B. But we are our own individuals, so that's support for each other. So now let's talk about support, and we just talked about that a little bit, but when I think of support, I think of like support hose or support, something like that, but it's to hold people up a little bit, or to hold them in so they're not just bursting, something like that. Yeah.
And when you talk about support hose, if support hose are going to do their job, sometimes they hold you back from doing something that would hurt you. Ooh. So you can't always affirm somebody and think it's emotional support.
Right.
Sometimes you've got to hold the line to provide emotional support and help somebody realize that they're out of bounds or they're headed out of bounds.
Yeah.
So
definitely. I think that's a really good support definition, because you've definitely held me back from like. Sometimes I'll write something that could be portrayed totally different. And it's like, okay, that's protecting me actually, and it was really good. So I promised you some ways to give. We're going to do practical here, which is really fun. Kind of going in depth again, because we have been together a number of years, and our lives have changed. I mean, during the times when we were raising those 3 boys, it was crazy busy. And it wasn't like we were thinking about this emotional support for each other. We were just thinking surviving. So.
But we figured out that giving emotional support was one way to help survive.
It totally is. It totally is. So I'm going to hit on one of my favorite things is reading or ingesting books or materials that we can either share together to encourage each other. And what brought this up was just this past week when I was thinking about purpose and hope and what I'm doing. And you gave me a chapter. You looked it up, the chapter in the book, The Call, and I'll put that link for any of you that are listening. I always write an article with every single episode like this, and you can see the link directly to that book. But it was about an illustration of someone that was being provided all of these opportunities to be, a speaker and to be on the, staging and to where, I mean, this was in this, it was a historical figure that said, no, my main calling, of course, is to write and to be, providing important material, and that would take me away from my main purpose. And it was so helpful for me to read that chapter, and there's other books and things just like that as well. So I'm sure you have some comments on that.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages of each of you always reading, or your business team always reading, is you have a fresh supply of ideas, right, or fresh perspectives on the same idea. And
right.
That was the case here. We had read separate books, but Deb was trying to put words to something she was feeling needed to be talked about. And I had read something a number of years ago, and it took me couple minutes to find it, but I did, and it fit exactly what she was trying to say. So there's some cross-pollination that can happen if you're both growing personally. It's you have other resources to help support one another.
Yeah, it's very, very, very helpful, and not just I'm sure there's people out there that are going, when was I reading a book last? I'm not reading. But hey, listening to podcasts, we share those.
Yeah,
Lots of
listen to podcasts, listen to YouTube videos.
Tons of media that's available now that you can listen to anywhere you are. I have a subscription to listen to books every month, and usually buy some little extras now and then too, and lots of podcasts. I have my favorites, and I kind of rotate around, and hopefully this is one of your favorites. But the support that it gives for each other, because
right,
we share different podcasts that we've heard, thinking, you would really like that. They hit on cryptocurrency in this one. I think I just shared one with you about that one, so that was fun. So, well, now let's get to, that is, either reading or ingesting any sort of material that would encourage each other. And this is encouraged a lot in different businesses, even on social media, how you will share, a particular article or something that you've read to somebody. And it's an emotional support. It's encouraging to say, wow, that person thought of me. But be authentic in it. Okay, that's really important too. I wanted to hit on our coffee time. And this is a big one because when we are able, most mornings we are at this point able to have a little coffee time together. And I do a lot of things before coffee time. I do work out. I take a walk. I am an early bird. So, but there's no agenda. So we sit and have coffee, and Greg's become quite the cappuccino maker. And so what are your comments about our...
Well, I think one of the things that's good about coffee time is that it happens 4 or 5 times a week. And we just talk about whatever comes to mind, which, usually is something that we're reading, some podcasts we listen to. It could be headlines in the news. Could be a phone call from one of our kids that we're just responding to. But as we talk, every now and then, great thoughts will pop out. And there's probably 2 lessons to take away from regular time. We're talking 20 or 30 minutes. We're not talking an hour. One is it's impossible to plan quality time.
Right.
Quality time is a fruit of quantity time.
Right.
But what we both would tell you is that once a week we have quality time. At least we may have quantity time, but quantity time ends up leading to quality time because something will get said and then somebody will ask a question and somebody says something else, and then it crystallizes into a really good thought.
Right.
This podcast happens to be the result of that. A second thing, not only does quality time come from quantity time, but we've both found that thoughts tend to untangle themselves either over the lips or through the fingertips.
Right.
So as you talk or journal, what will happen is you'll take a vague thought, it'll become a specific thought, and if you work a little bit longer, it might even become a profound thought.
Right.
So it's a broad thought is a lot of times like a piece of clay that you're kind of molding, and the longer you mold it, if you've got talent, it can become something really beautiful to look at. And the same thing is true of thoughts. As we talk, our thoughts tend to disentangle themselves. And they become crystallized, and a lot of times they stay a broad thought. Every now and then they become a profound thought.
Yeah.
And so that's the advantage of coffee time.
Yes. And I gave a bonus chapter in the audiobook for the summit, and I talk about little index cards that I keep at all times, or little papers, but mostly I put them on index cards. Some of those index cards happen during our coffee time. It's just like, oh, that's how I can develop that thought in the book.
Yeah, that's Debbie's shortcut way of journaling.
It is.
She's always got index cards with her.
Right.
And if you looked at her desk, she's got piles of index cards. In fact, as I recall, your book, The Summit, kind of was storybooked on random index cards that finally came together in a storyline.
Right. And I redid them, and this is what I tell in the bonus chapter, and how I put them into beats and how I reorganize them, and it's part of what I went through in writing a musical.
But her thoughts disentangled as she wrote them down.
Yes, very important. And again, that's such encouragement to me emotionally, because it's like, oh, I just got that, like, that's how it works, and so it's exciting, and it's, because that stuff doesn't you don't just sit down and go, okay, now it's creative time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
you just can't.
Have you ever felt like, oh, that was a great thought, and you go, I'll take care of that when I get home. And when you get home, you're going,
what was it?
What was that?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Again, creative thoughts are a little bit like quality time.
Yeah.
They pop up in the middle of a lot of thoughts.
Right.
And when you have one, you've got to figure out a way to write it down. Record it onto your phone, write it on an index card, whatever you do, stop everything you're doing. If you have a great thought, write it down.
I've done that with music. I've kept a little, now I just sort of sketch out the notes because I can understand what I write, but I used to keep a little tiny pad of manuscript paper and just be able to write down a melody that, oh, that's a great melody. So before we had like phones that would just record everything, but if you don't write those things down, you just don't remember. And now the problem is I have these books and going, oh, that was a great idea. How come I never did anything? I have way too many ideas. Okay, so we're going to move on. That was our reading or ingesting material, could be podcasts or listening, and our coffee time. I want to get to kind of a proofreading, which is another point of this. But we talk about proof thinking for those who are not writers. What brought this up was, I'm always either writing an article or writing a one page about a course I have coming up or something. And I usually say, well, Greg, can you just look at this? And you could do this, of course, with your team, with a colleague, with anyone. Or can you proofread through this and let me know your thoughts? It's so very valuable, and you can't be afraid of a page being marked up. And if you say, you know what, I didn't get to my point on that at all, and now I see it because you brought it up. But it's helpful for each other because you're really protecting them from putting out something that may not quite be ready to be able to put out. And I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, so Debbie and I both write, so there's a lot of proofreading that goes on. But what we were realizing that any husband and wife who are both working have different problems at work, different goals at work, different challenges. And one of the things that keeps you together as a couple is being able to share life together. And one of the things that tends to happen is because one person is a nurse and another person is an engineer.
Right.
Somehow you think that those things don't relate.
Yeah.
If you are thinking about taking some sort of action at work, which you always are,
Right.
one of the things to do would be talk to your spouse.
Right.
And if you make this a habit, it won't be as odd.
Right.
But if you talk to your spouse continually, like over coffee time,
Right.
About what you're thinking, not necessarily what you're writing, what you're thinking, that spouse knows your goals, knows your purposes, knows your good sides, your bad sides. Over time, they get to know the personalities at your work. They'd be an invaluable source of maybe not changing your thinking, but maybe perhaps suggesting ways you could present the same idea in a different way.
Right.
That would make it more likely to succeed.
Right.
Same thing can happen. It happens in any relationship.
Right.
You've got a teenager, same thing can happen. Certainly on your work teams, that's true.
Right.
One of the things we hate to do is waste time at meetings.
Yes.
But
Especially me.
But somehow you got to foster think time.
Yes.
And maybe don't call it a meeting. Just call it think time. Call it brainstorming. Get everybody a cup of coffee. 4 or 5 people in a room. Here's what we're challenging. What are your ideas?
Right.
And just proof think.
Right. Proof think. I really like that term because we know other people in companies or couples too that are extremely different. I mean, we're different, but they work so extremely different to where one person is, they're such the organizer of everything, and the other one's just this kind of like, everything's beautiful and things end up
laid back, scattered,
totally scattered,
right.
Laid back, and just. They have a great relationship somehow. They, and they get things done. So they've learned this patience with each other, but also in this, they must have some sort of system. You have to develop your own system of that thinking together to be able to give that feedback. Say, what do you think of this? Well, even if you're really laid back thinking, I don't know if that'll work, or, how many signs do I need to make for that, that event and that all of that. So that's, I think it's a very valuable way to think about it, of a proof think, so especially if you're not a writer and, but there's a lot of stuff going out right now, proofing videos. Oh, that's scary. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and you probably take something away from this, but when we're proofreading, because we talk enough, we know what each other intended to say.
Right.
And we can quickly go, I know what you wanted to say, you didn't say it.
Yeah.
And, there's no editor in the world that can give Debbie the input that I can give.
Right.
Because, over coffee time or, over dinner time or on a walk, she storybooked everything she's writing. And so I know what she's trying to get across. I know what pain she's trying to resolve for somebody. I know what dreams she's trying to paint. So when she tries to do that and instead, says something else, I just can ask her, now, were you trying to, and, fill in the blank. And, usually it's helpful. And she does the same thing for me.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a great That's a great way to put it. Were you trying to do this? Because you did this to me today. Okay, on a document, it's fresh in my mind. What were you trying to say here? And I said it, and you said, but you didn't say that. So, yeah, it's very helpful for me to go, oh.
Which is another example of thoughts disentangling themselves over the lips. Because all I asked her is what did you intend to say?
Yeah.
And it wasn't close to what she had written down.
No, it wasn't. Which is actually kind of funny because how much stuff have I written now?
Oh,
but this comes up over and over and over because I write fast and I put stuff down. I think, oh, it looks pretty. Visually, doesn't that look great? You know, I'm an artist. It looks great. And you're going, but it doesn't sound great. I don't know what you're trying to say. So that's very, very helpful for me. Taking that step back, rewriting. And I've told my audience many, many times, writing is rewriting. It's what it is. And it's why I have 2 editors. I had hired 2 editors on this last book. And you read it, which was, I should say, the 3rd. So, and I had a reading with people. So it was very helpful. You've got to have that input.
Yep.
So definitely. Walking and talking. This is another one, and we've kind of put some of this down because there's usually no agenda on walking and talking, but this can happen with colleagues, with neighbors, providing emotional support. Do you remember your feeling when COVID first started and how we were so isolated and our walks that we were doing, I got to see people. And to me, I'm an introvert, but I needed to see people and that emotional support, again, it provides emotional support to be able to now recognize people, giving them a wave, saying, oh, how's your dog doing, all of those things. But walking and talking, there's no agenda, but as you walk, you talk. You just do. And even some of my neighbors, I'll end up walking with them. And the stuff that they talk about, it's like, oh, I can't believe I told you all that stuff. Because you walk and you talk. And I said, it's okay. Won't go any further. I've got it.
Yeah, it's just a great way to get to know people.
Yeah.
It's interesting, think about that God created humans to communicate while they walk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever thought about this, but Jesus taught the disciples a lot while they were walking.
Yes.
It wasn't always, a stage, everybody sit down and listen to Jesus talk.
Yeah.
A lot of it happened as they were walking. Mm-hmm. And, something about humans. Doesn't, there's a difference between a walk and a 5-mile hike.
Oh, yeah.
So, a lot of times 5-mile hikes don't quite get the same amount of talking done.
Right.
So I call them strolls.
Strolls. And also, I find with my personality, I clear my throat here, but I tend to pay attention more when I'm walking or I'm moving. Because if I sit for too long, my eyes start glazing over.
Well, plus if you sit too long, you want to come to your office and start working.
Yeah, I do. I'm not a sitter. I'm just not. So if it's, if you're moving, as you walk, you talk. And, going through those. And again, that's why I keep note cards. That's why I do it. So it's just pretty amazing. But even with colleagues and with friends and with co-workers, just taking a walk is a great way. It doesn't have to be an agenda, but just to give emotional support. We're going to hit on listening here. Listening is a big one. And I could have started with this, but I'm sort of kind of ending with listening and how important that is for emotional support. Like, would you feel listened to and emotional support if I cut you off every time that you were... It doesn't happen that way. And just being able to shut our mouth and just listen.
Well, and let somebody complete a thought.
Yeah, and you don't have to agree, but just to complete the thought is really, I think, a very valuable thing right now. We live in some polarizing events in our world right now that are just pulling people apart. But listening to where they're at is, I think, extremely important. And just because you can agree to disagree.
Yeah. Something I've experienced too is if you let somebody complete a thought and then you follow up with maybe 2 questions. So, one of the follow-up questions might be, so what I heard you say was, fill in the blank. Is that what you meant to say? And, and they say yes. And another follow-up question would be, does that mean? So you pick up on where that would lead to. Or maybe it'd be, does that make you feel? But, 2 follow-ups on a completed thought help somebody feel like they were listened to. Because you couldn't be somewhere else and follow up with those questions.
Right.
A lot of our national media should try this. It drives me nuts that some spokesperson says something and there's no follow-up questions. Right. It's like, were you listening?
Yes. And it's why you have done so well in the financial field as well, because you are not just telling people what they have to do. And you have said, okay, so is this really where you want to be? And you're able to guide them to say, this is a more realistic view of, where those are going to be your decisions, but where you want to be.
Yeah.
So I think.
And if you think about this, you can probably weigh this, but once kids are beyond 6, it's difficult to impose your plan on a human.
Right.
You can participate, though, in helping a human develop their own plan. And perhaps that looks a lot like the plan you would have developed for them in the first place. Right. But until a human has their own plan, they won't follow it. You can't impose a plan on a human.
Right.
You can impose jail on a human and force them to do certain things during the day, but it wouldn't be their plan.
Right, right. I think that's really important as we think about, adult kids too.
Yeah.
And as we have adult kids, and we're able to talk to all of them. They're all very different, but good relationships. They get along together. We're very thankful for that. And we have the relationship of being able to communicate. They're definitely launched. They are on their own. We are, we're not, we have our own life, and but yet asking those questions of them, it's really helpful for me. And I've told Greg, when our kids got to this certain stage and you think they're out of the house now, it's like, especially as a dad with sons, I said, oh, your job is not done. I need you. They need you so much, because as men grow, they need to know how to be fathers. They need to know how to be husbands. They need to know how to make those difficult decisions in life. And asking some of those questions provides for them emotional support and to where they have to make decisions, in their lives.
Yep.
So, and you really...
And something Deb and I kind of concluded together was, I know my sons, better than anybody.
Right.
I love them more than anybody but Deb. There isn't another relationship that has so little agenda than my love for them. So, and as they go through the 30s, as you remember back into your 30s, you make a bunch of crucial decisions.
Yes.
And to take an approach to fathering that would pull my voice out of their life while they were making those decisions doesn't seem wise. It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
So I tried to stay positioned to be somebody that helps them with their plans.
Right.
I'm not going to impose my plan. I'm not even going to challenge their plans. But more importantly, I'm going to ask them about their plans, how their plans are going. Are you making any adjustments?
Right.
What about this, that, the other thing? And most of that just shows interest in their lives. And if it's new to you, maybe the first time in that relationship, it'll feel like you're going somewhere you weren't supposed to go.
Right.
But, after 3 or 4 times, we've been at it now, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
It's a normal part of our lives.
Right.
They just assume we're going to talk about things that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of, this was a nice little illustration just the other day that one of our sons is close enough, about 20 minutes away. And I got this call and said, "Hi, Mom, are you home?" And I always know, okay, Mike, do you have the kids? He goes, "Well, can I come by?" And he had all these apples he wanted to, try canning and all of this. And I said, "Well, I got so many supplies. Please come over and get them." So, but he came over, and how many hours did he end up staying? Yeah,
Probably 3. We had dinner plans.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do it so often that it's an imposition.
No.
And it gave us a chance to catch up on
and just
how his
hang
plans
out.
were doing.
It was so great to be available, to listen, to just hang. And there's stuff that comes up during those conversations. So as a parent of adult children, we're going to do another podcast coming up on that. We always hit that once in a while because it is important. But just being available to listen to and just being available. I mean, at least we were going out us and we weren't
Right. We weren't meeting another couple.
Yeah,
Right.
and so we were able to order in. We were flexible enough. That doesn't always happen. But it was a really, really fun time to be able to do. Well, thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Greg. It's always so much fun when we do these. Again, to review these points was that reading and the books or listening, how we can share with each other, coffee time or put something like that, snack time, whatever you want to do, break time, proofread or proof think. I like that word a lot. That was a Greg word. Walking and talking. This can happen with neighbors, providing just neighbor relationships, kind of, and just interacting. I think that's more important than ever right now. Still, people are still fearful. They're still isolated. And listening. And this happens, and this applies to everyone in our circles. So make sure you join me next week. Have a great one that I am speaking on the historical cycle of hope throughout history. I kind of blaze through from the 30s to the 40s to 50s all the way to the present time of some of the historical facts of things that, tough things that were happening during that decade and the innovation that happened. It's kind of a fast-moving podcast. Of course, there's an article with it with tons of links that you can link to. But I feel like hope is very important to focus on right now, especially because it is a subject of the summit. Again, if you've not gotten that, make sure you do, or at least you look at it. It's on Amazon. And you can link with me anytime. Share this. That's the way podcasts are usually, new podcasts are found, is somebody shares with them. And so I hope that you do that. That'd mean a lot to me. Even if you write a review, starting to get those reviews coming in, that's a lot of fun. And you can link with me anywhere. I'm on all that social media, Deborah.Johnson on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, on the other ones. And so to make sure you can either follow or link with me or communicate. So thanks again for joining me. This has been an absolute pleasure. And thanks. I just love these that we get to do together. And Greg will change back into his tank top because it's warm today. So here we go. Okay, thanks again. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson, signing off.